Welcome back to the Charter Podcast, brought to you by St. Xavier University on this Vibe Check Wednesday. I am Ruthie Polinsky. I'm joined by Alex Shapiro and Clay Harbor because we have some vibes to check. Before we get into it, guys, let's start with your vibe. How's your vibe, Alex, today?
My vibe, I'm actually feeling good. My vibes are great because my son has started socially smiling, finally, for the first time a few days ago. I mean, every newborn has like fart smiles, which are fake. Just because like I got a fart as a fake smile, but he started a real smile and just melted my heart. I mean, you think you love your son more than anything in the world, and then he smiles at you for the first time. My goodness, game changer.
Wow. Wow. Okay, well, that really set the tone for this episode because I have nothing that is bringing me joy in my life like that.
Yeah, I can't say anything about my day now.
No, it's completely unrelatable.
My workout was
I'm
really
sure
good.
there are both things in your lives that spark joy in you.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that my son is kind of my whole world right now.
Lots of joy. Particularly getting to cover NFL teams like the Chicago Bears. Listen, I think we were having this conversation yesterday with Clay. There's sort of this narrative right now of like 3 games left, got to power through. Like, how are we going to cover 3 more games? Like, we are so lucky to cover the NFL and to be covering one of the most historic franchises in the history of the sport, in the history of all sports, arguably. So I just want to take a moment to say this is not going to be a sulking episode. We are not sulking today. We are giving a very educated vibe check. It doesn't have to be positive, but we're not sulking. Right, Clay?
Absolutely not sulking. I mean, it's, on this end of things, as a player, sometimes maybe you're like, man, this season has been long. You start to look at the light at the end of the tunnel. Right now, we don't have to go out there and take no hits. We just talk about it. We got a great fan base that just wants a winning team, and we get to talk about them, something that we get to see. We're insiders here. Obviously, me have played the game and just give our perspectives, and we're going to do that all the way to the end and beyond. Obviously, Alex is already covering the draft, just talking about he's already started with the defensive line. Can't wait to hear more about this rookie class and the help that the Bears are going to get this season. But very lucky and blessed to be in this spot.
That's exactly right. And we are so grateful this holiday season, right? Like, this is the time of year. We're cheerful. We're happy. We're loving life. So let's get into it, guys. Vibe Check Wednesday. Let's start things off with our Vibe Check. Listen, we'll go back to this game for a moment, Monday night. And the big storyline coming out of it was the left tackle, the rookie left tackle, Kiran Amegadjie, making his first start. And it was rough. Alex, what's your vibe check on Kiran Amegadjie?
A little sorry. I feel a little sorry for him. And this is something that Clay definitely spoke about in our post-game recap. I mean, this is a guy who has dreamed of this moment, and he was not necessarily put in the best position to succeed. The guy who missed the entire summer program, took no first-team reps because the team thinks Braxton Jones is playing left tackle, and finds out like 30 hours 32. However, he found out the day before on Saturday, or on Sunday rather, because it was Monday Night Football. You're going to have to start. And that is an extremely tough task. And then obviously it did not go well. There were the penalties. He got beat time and time again. So just a really unfortunate situation. And again, it's like, I'm not trying to make excuses. But I do feel sorry for him. And that's, it's a shame. For a third-round pick, making his first start, definitely not how anybody drew it up.
Clay?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this a little bit on the Big Pro Football Show, obviously on the post-game show, and then me and Alex were just talking yesterday in studio before a Pro Football Show. And my vibe check on Kiran Amegadjie, is put in a tough spot. Yes, he can do better, but I put a lot of this on the coaching staff, and it's just the roster construction. We were told this is the deepest offensive line group that Ryan Poles has had, and to have this situation is just context that it isn't, and it wasn't. and that he was wrong there, right? It's for Amagaji, and I was talking to Alex, as a player perspective, right? You're going into US Bank Stadium as a rookie. Okay, I went to an FCS college. Kiran Amegadjie went to an FCS school. His might have been a little better academically than mine, Yale versus Missouri State University. It's just a little bit better. But silent count, is difficult. In college, I didn't even know teams did silent count. I'll be honest. High school to college, I was telling Ruthie, you could see your mom, your dad, the stadium. You might have 10,000 fans on a really good day. You can hear a pin drop. Everything is verbal. This guy didn't get to play in the preseason. He didn't get to play in training camp. And then you find out Sunday that you're starting on a Monday in US Bank Stadium, which back in my day, I know I sound like a grandpa telling war stories now. Back in my day, this was one of the loudest stadiums in the league. And I'm not exaggerating here. People like the Vikings, yes. That dome, the way the noise echoes, you can't hear anything. So now he's figuring out silent count, which is huge. People don't understand how big of a thing it is for snap count. You got to get off on the snap or you're just cooked. The play's over. When you're left tackle, that's the main thing. That's why you see all these tackles getting penalized for being a half a foot back, for being 2 foot, because it's an advantage. And to put him in that situation, not having the practice time, not even the reps in the week, was just in a no-win. There's no way he could go out there and compete against a guy like Jonathan Grenard, play in and play out, and have a good game. He could have had a little bit better. Obviously, it wasn't pretty, but I want to give him another shot to see what he can do, because being in that situation, I know personally, is not easy. So, Kiran Amegadjie, for me, I'm giving you another week.
And Clay, it felt like also there wasn't a ton of help. Like, they weren't chipping as much as you thought, not a lot of extra protection. Like, you knew that was going to be a tough situation for him. And it just felt like they weren't putting him in a place to be successful.
And yeah, so that first sack, I don't know what Travis Homer was doing. And if you watch the film, he kind of gets caught up inside, but you can see that they have everybody taken care of. That wasn't even one of Flores's most confusing looks, because he likes to mug the backers up, and that's what keeps the running backs from taking an outside release. On your way out, you can chip, right? That's the whole. He wants them to chip. That's why Homer's on the left side. When he releases on his way out, he's going to chip the defensive end if they're not blitzing anybody. Everybody was picked up, and Homer gets caught up looking inside. There's nobody coming, man. Release and chip. That is something I've played in the backfield. I've been in that position. It's obviously not easy, but you can diagnose that a lot sooner. But once again, when the noise is up, you got Brian Flores confusing people, things like that happen. And that was on his sack of when he gave up that strip sack. Homer should have chipped him there. But to your point, Ruthie, you could have helped him a lot more. Just go be demonstrative with it. Put a tight end on the left wing and chip every time you go out, knowing that's your situation. Maybe some more max protect stuff. Obviously, you want to get more guys out in a route. It's tough if you have zone coverage and you only got 2 or 3 guys out in a route concept, because these guys can cover up their zones. They're not being drawn by a flat defender because these guys are in the block, right? So they just drop. So I understand why you don't want to do that. But with a team that does run a lot of man-to-man, Flores, he will do a lot of man-to-man coverage there. You could do a lot more max protect. So I think a lot of that is on Thomas Brown as well. So another reason why maybe he should have, just been the offensive coordinator.
I think we could probably get into that a little bit more if you wanted to as well. But I think the 4 penalties that were on Kiran Amegadjie, right? Like, that has to do with kind of all of it combined. The tough environment, not putting him in a place to be successful, and also just the lack of preparation that he was given. I think the criticism, there's a lot of it around too, Alex, I'll let you chime in here, but like, that's a 3rd round pick. He was injured when you drafted him. You want your 3rd rounders to be impactful players during the season. And the fact that Kiran Amegadjie had that opportunity in a tough spot, yes, albeit, but it wasn't the way that I'm sure Ryan Poles wanted it to look in his first start as a 3rd round pick.
Oh, absolutely. There should be questions about that pre-draft evaluation. Everybody knew this guy had a quad injury, and their timeline was way off. They said, we think he's going to be good to go for the summer program, whether he had a setback or what. He was obviously not ready. And so you got to take a good look at that. Hey, this was a risk bringing a guy in with an injury history and didn't work out. And he's not alone in that, right? I mean, Nate Davis was another guy who had a tough time getting on the field in Tennessee and had a tough time getting on the field in Chicago. Who else? Ryan Bates, a guy who didn't really make it on the field last year for the Buffalo Bills. And I mean, concussions are different. He's had a concussion, but he's also had some non-concussion injuries. So
5th round pick.
It does feel like they were just a little late to the Ryan Bates party. Obviously, that's someone that Ryan Poles was trying to get here for many years, it felt like. But it did feel like you kind of missed that window of him, contributing on the field. Let's move on, guys, because I want to get your vibe check. And this is kind of a nice transition into just sort of the way that the young guys, maybe it's Ryan Poles' first 3 draft classes. How has that sort of panned out? What's your vibe on the young guys?
The young guys overall, I am ready to see more of them. I am ready to see more Austin Booker. I'm ready to see more Jonathan Ford, guy who came out of nowhere and then all of a sudden was popping. I'm ready to see more Kiran Amegadjie. Tyler Scott. This is a team that's not going to the playoffs. They're going nowhere this year. And I asked Thomas Brown on Monday, hey, you going to give some of these younger guys a longer look? The Zach Pickens of the world? Chris Williams. Does Chris Williams need to be playing, or should Zach Pickens be getting more tick? Again, Austin Booker, these types of players. Tyler Scott. The answer was no. No, we are going to put the best game plan we can to win football games. And I understand that. Like, that's his job as a head coach. As a head coach, his job is to win football games, not to develop players. That's that would come from up on high from Ryan Poles. But me personally, I'm ready to see more of the young guys. When Tyler Scott caught his first pass of the year on Monday night, it was like, oh yeah, Tyler Scott's on this team,
from
a 4th round pick. Right. From Tyson Bagent. Exactly. Right. Right. Now, I don't need to see more Tyson Bagent. We need to see more Caleb Williams. I know Tyson Bagent is a solid backup quarterback, but that's what I'm saying. It's now let's give these young guys an opportunity to see what they can do so that they have good teach tape going into the offseason, so that what your foundation is heading into your offseason draft work, your offseason pro personnel free agent work. Noah Sewell. Should Noah Sewell be getting some snaps? Stuff of that nature. And, whether it's at Sam, whatever. That's what I'm saying. Young guys. Let's get the young guys playing.
Clay, I know you have some thoughts on just sort of the way that Poles' draft picks have played out. What's your vibe check on the young men on this roster?
You guys know how I feel about the Poles draft pick. And just before I go into that, I feel like the Bears should have 2 more 2nd-round picks to put on that offensive line, and high 2nd-round picks. One of them was the pick number 32. One of them was pick 40, right? You could have had those 2 picks. I know you got Montez Sweat in one of those trades. Another one, you got Chase Claypool. So before I even start, I think that for a rebuilding team, mortgaging 2nd-round picks was not what you wanted to do. And I know it's hindsight is 2020. Hindsight bias, it's a real thing. Psychology, my first year of college, I studied psychology. Ruthie, I thought I was going to be a psychologist. So that's a real thing. But I don't pay my GM to do things that look good in the moment. It's like my financial advisor. If he would have bought me, and then all of a sudden I'm rich and then I'm poor, I'm still poor. I don't care if I'm rich last year when Montez Sweat had 15 sacks or whatever he had. I'm still poor now. And I should have had a 2nd-round pick. But that's neither here nor there. I just had to get that one off my chest, guys. I've been feeling that one. But I definitely want to see the young guys. I've been a young guy in an NFL locker room, and you start to play better when you have context to go off of. It's in any situation. If you're in media, when you have something to go off of, real game experience, and the more experience you have, now when you go into the offseason, you can think back on that and say, okay, what can I do in that situation? Because you can study tape, you can run routes on air in your neighborhood, you find your quarterback when you're back at home in the offseason, or with Caleb, whatever. But until you're under the lights on a Sunday, you will not get better, because it's so different. You got to realize what it's like going in there, how you need to prepare. Okay, once you actually start playing, okay, I need to switch around this in my routine so I'm better during game day. So I'm with you, Alex, 100%. It's starting to see some of these young guys, these old guys, these veterans, a lot of them have reached their ceilings or close to it. These young guys can get a lot better, and you still don't know what you have. Austin Booker, Noah Sewell, you throw out some good names, Tyler Scott, and I know is playing to win the game. You play to win the game. Hello. I know he's playing to win the game, but I think at this point in the season, you got to start looking for what's best for this organization moving forward. And what's best is to get a longer extended look at a lot of these young players to see what you have moving forward.
I have a thought. I would like to chime in. What makes anyone on this roster think that they deserve to be here next year? Like, to me, these final 3 games, like, everyone's auditioning, okay? Because, like, this is – I hear you guys and you want to get those young players reps, but, like, what makes you think that the veterans deserve to be, just like, you guys are good, take a seat. We got to see what we have in the young guys. So that, to me, and what I think we're all kind of learning is somewhat of a relatively mentally weak locker room is sort of like coming out right now, right? Like, we're hearing these guys say the season, DJ Moore saying on the radio this week, the season was over after the Hail Mary that turned the season. Like, to me, that's like, there weren't enough strong leaders and voices in that locker room to get that thing back on track. And I hear you, like, you can say whatever you want about the coaching staff and the turnover and the way things have changed. But, like, to me, there needed to be some sort of like veteran winning voice in that locker room to help get things back on track if you felt like that was a moment that was going to deter your season. And so I hear you. You want to see what the young guys can do. But like, Caleb Williams needs a lot of help still. Like, Caleb Williams needs to be playing with the guys that are going to put him in the best position. And I don't think Tyler Scott's putting him in the best position. I don't think Kiran Amegadjie's putting him in the best position. I don't, there are a lot of opportunities. I can see what you maybe on defense, but Tremaine Edmonds, like, you're not playing great either. Like, there's no guarantees for anyone, So I think a lot of what needs to be sort of the message in that locker room is not, we're tapping out, let's see what the young guys can do. It's like, you guys are all auditioning. Like, this is a look at everyone under a microscope because, yeah, sure, the playoffs aren't here, but let's see who's tough. Let's see who's going to play to the whistle every single snap and needs to be a part of our culture moving forward. So that's sort of my rebuttal to your guys' take on seeing the locker room and seeing the young guys. And I think there's a lot of work, and Matt Eberflus getting fired is only exposing sort of this roster in a very different way to me, and just really how far away they are from competing in the division.
It really has. And I agree with you. Like, I think it's a separate issue that's kind of related to the same issue. The locker room stuff is arguably more troubling than the on-field stuff, right? These are things that, as Thomas Brown said, need to stay in-house. And the fact that we're hearing about it on the radio all the time, and when, Thomas Brown came in, he said, we got to clean this up, and this can't be getting out anymore, and it still is also troubling. So that's one side of it, and that's part of the evaluation. Mercedes Lewis is here to be that galvanizing guy, right? Tremaine Edmonds, you're supposed to be a leader on this team. Jalen Johnson and Jaquan Brisker, right? These are guys, and I know Brisker's hurt, but I mean, he's still with the group, right? So that is an issue, and I'm not saying that by getting more playing time for Tyler Scott, you're throwing in the towel. But hey, how can we find a way to get this guy on the field? Can we get him a shot as a punt returner? Can we get him a shot as a kick returner? Can we dial up some interesting packages to get the ball in his hands? That's not, I'm not saying bench Keenan Allen to get Tyler Scott on the field. I'm like, let's find a way to work him in. Noah Sewell, I'm not saying that he should be starting over Jack Sanborn at Sam, but one of the things that you liked about him when you drafted him was he's a great pass rusher, right? He's a good blitzer. Maybe he can come up with some pass rush package for him on your first 3rd and 8. And hey, Sewell will get in there and get after the quarterback. So I'm not saying, and I'm glad that you pushed back so that we could expand on this. Because I'm not saying like tap out and we're throwing up the white flag. I'm saying like let's find some ways to get these guys involved. Yeah. Because right now they're not.
Right. No, I hear you. Let's move on, because speaking of, defense, I think this is interesting. Demarcus Walker, made his presence known in that game on Monday night. I was like, when did they play? Monday. Feels like it was forever ago. What's your vibe check on Demarcus Walker?
You want to kick us off?
Yeah, I'll kick us off here. I like what Demarcus Walker brings to the team, and having been at a lot of training camp practices in the past couple of years and just seeing the energy he brings, you need a guy like that. You always it's like when I was in Philly, Brandon Graham, me and him were in the same draft class. He's always that guy that's chirping. He's chirping the offense. He's rallying people up. He brings energy. I love that about him. And the thing I like most about Demarcus Walker is his versatility. And you need those players, because you can move Demarcus Walker. He can play 3-tech. Then he's playing over the 5 technique. He could play a 6. He could play a 9. He can play anywhere on that defensive front. And I'm not saying he's going to be a game-breaking guy, but he is a good piece that you can use on a defensive line, and you can use so many different places. And he's just a veteran. He plays with great pad leverage. He's a smart rusher. Knows his limitations. He can contain. He's not a guy that's just going to rush up field and then open up a rush lane for the quarterback. He's not a guy that's going to, hit some crazy spin move. He's more of a speed to power guy, but he is a true pro, and he's a guy that brings a lot of energy. And I think he's done very well for himself, showing his versatility, the type of player he is. And then the other thing, I love watching all 22, Alex. We always talk about the all 22. He's a guy that never takes a play off. There's some guys, the plays on the opposite side of the field. He is always chasing down a play. And defensive coordinators, what do they love? They love when the backside D-end will crash down an offensive line and make a play on a zone play away, on a toss play away. He is a guy that will do that. So my vibe check on Demarcus Walker is, let's see, what's a good word for this one, Ruthie? He's found his niche. He's a guy that you need on the team. So
can I follow up on that, Clay? Why? Yeah. Why hesitate? Why do you not feel his presence every game? Like, what was it about the way he played on Monday night that you really felt like he was making a difference? Because I think, you come into the season and you think, all right, they're kind of banking on Demarcus Walker sort of being that other pass rusher opposite of Montez Sweat that could open things up for Montez Sweat. Like, why did we not see that come to fruition this year?
I think he's had a pretty consistent year, but I think you just got to take him for what he is. He's not the end that's going to get 10 sacks. That's not him. A versatile guy that's going to play in the system. He can collapse the pocket. He can pressure here or there. He's great against the run, and he's going to give you great effort. And you got to realize that he is his role. He's not a guy that's going to step outside of his role and be a superstar to put aside Montez Sweat and command a double team here or there. But when you put him in his role, he is good in that role, and you just can't expect a guy to take a leap because you want him to take a leap. It takes back to Jacksonville when we signed Julius Thomas at tight end, right? So all of a sudden the coaches thought Julius Thomas was going to come in and have the year he had with the Indianapolis, not the
Broncos.
Denver Broncos the year before with Peyton Manning, where he caught 12 touchdowns, had 1,000 yards. We were a different offense there. Julius was Julius. He was the same player. He did the same stuff, but he wasn't put in the same situation there. So you're not going to create a player to be who you want him to be just because you have that need. So for me, Demarcus Walker has done what you paid him to do, and that is be a versatile role player that plays hard, will make plays here and there, but he is not a superstar.
I feel very similarly to Clay, where it felt like, the quintessential Demarcus Walker game. And to me, I guess that's my vibe, is like, this is kind of what I expected, which is he will make plays, but he's not the game wrecker. He's not Montez Sweat is supposed to be your game wrecker. And, when they signed Demarcus Walker way back when, it always felt like he was going to be the number 3 guy, right? The sixth man award, if you will, for the defensive line. The guy who comes in off the bench and gets you some good minutes when you really need him, right? The guy who can play D-tackle in those NASCAR packages, which he's done a good job of. And it's just kind of, to me, it's similar to the Kiran Amegadjie story, where maybe the Bears have asked too much of Demarcus Walker. And, I mean, he did. He played a really, really nice game against the Vikings, and you felt him. You saw the juice, which is another reason why the Bears brought him in, to be a juice guy. Mm-hmm. But I think maybe the Bears have asked too much of Demarcus Walker, which I think is something we've talked about before. So it was good to see. But yeah, like, Demarcus Walker should be winning because Montez Sweat is getting so much attention, right? Demarcus Walker isn't going to be the guy who creates for Montez Sweat. It should be Montez Sweat who's creating for Demarcus Walker.
This just kind of all got me thinking. And I remember watching Hard Knocks and noticing that Demarcus Walker was sitting in the front row in every team meeting next to the quarterbacks. And that always kind of struck me as this is a guy that is all in. He is a leader. And then I was thinking, why is he not a captain? All these captains for the Chicago Bears. And that's one of the guys that I feel has this really strong veteran leader personality that isn't on there. And I don't know. It kind of got me thinking this week as we were going through the vibe check possibilities. And I understand maybe he's not a star player, but sometimes your captains aren't. And I don't know. It just got me thinking, something for our readers to ponder. Readers, listeners, viewers. Let's move on, fly through these next two, because this is really, we are working our way through this. I think the Caleb Williams sort of melting into the bench on Monday night is an image that is going to be ingrained in our memories forever. Hopefully there will be other memories of him hoisting a Lombardi trophy one day that can replace that. But until he does that, I think we're all going to remember that moment, right? Monday Night Football, all the cameras on you, you take a big hit and you walk over to the sideline and you're wincing in pain, you're exhausted. And it's a image that every national commentator wants to comment about this week. What is your vibe check on Caleb Williams?
I mean, just focusing on that image this week, this really specific point in time, my vibe check is deja vu with Justin Fields, because there are similar GIFs and images of Justin Fields on the bench being like, whoa, what's going on here? And some of the things I saw from Caleb Williams on Monday night were also things that I saw out of Justin Fields towards the end of his time with the Bears, which is the clock speeding up because the pass rush is getting to him in a hurry off the edge. It's not seeing guys who are open or not throwing the ball to guys who are open. It's the dropping the eyes down the field. Now, here's going to be the key. How does he respond? And again, this was the key for Justin Fields. It was the key for the Bears after the Hail Mary. How do they respond to the adversity? And I'm not equating Justin Fields with the team as a whole. I'm not equating Caleb Williams with the team as a whole, and I'm not equating Caleb Williams to Justin Fields, even though it's hilarious that I accidentally said Justin Fields when I meant Caleb Williams. So
I said Matt Eberflus on air yesterday. I said Matt Eberflus on air yesterday, and Ruthie didn't even correct me. So it's fine. We all knew I meant Thomas Brown. I said Matt Eberflus.
So we're all on the same page.
It was during my Kiran Amegadjie rant, and I said, I don't blame Kiran Amegadjie as much as I blame Matt Eberflus for putting him in that situation when I meant to say Thomas Brown. But it's fine. You know, I just was watching the film back, and I said Matt Eberflus.
Yeah, I got a little deja vu. Just to wrap it up, I got a little deja vu, and I am like, how does he respond these last 3 games? Is it going to be more of the same? Like the Hail Mary broke the Bears. Will this moment break Caleb Williams for the rest of the season? Will he end up going down a path that Justin Fields went down, which was not very good, or can he overcome it all? So that's where I'm at with him.
Yeah. On that exact question, Ruthie, that's a tough one for me, man, because you hear the national media just crushing Caleb for his body language there. And from a different time when we were in the NFL, like Andy Reid, I don't want to see that. You go back, eyes up, shoulders back. That was always their thing, no matter what. Eyes up, shoulders back. I don't care what happened. This is the NFL. Nobody cares. Nobody's going to feel bad for you. Don't go to the sideline and lay on the bench. Don't lay on the field. Don't have this bad body language. You in New England, you had bad body language. They're going to point you out on the team. Oh, that clip, you walk in a team meeting, Caleb Williams is going to be up there on the big board, and coaches are going to be pointing him out in front of the team meeting room. What is this? Are you feeling sorry for yourself? Are you hurt that bad? You can't stand up? You can't have your eyes up, shoulders back? So for me, I like it because I like that old school approach because it was a mentality. It was a mindset. It was something, I don't care. I'm going to be focused. And it's just this tough, masculine, you can do whatever you want, but I'm going to get up and go to that next play. And it's always what's going to happen the next play, whatever happened before. On the flip side of that, this kid's 23 years old. He's got Kiran Amegadjie just getting olayed, and he gets snapped into the turf. He's laying there. So it's tough to criticize him so much for that because a lot of people haven't been in that situation. But I know in locker rooms, your teammates, players, other people in the NFL watching around the league, that's not a good look, right? So I think he does need to improve the body language a little bit, but that's me sitting here watching on TV, watching the All-22 film and looking at it from afar. You don't know how it feels to be behind that offensive line, to be getting hit like that. So I do want to see him improve that body language and have that, okay, next play, Jalen Hurts type, Josh Allen type mentality where you go back to the sideline and you just look like you can't wait. Tom Brady can't wait to get that next drive and get back on the field.
All right, good stuff, guys. Great stuff on a Vibe Check Wednesday. Let's move on to our head coach candidate previews brought to you by Alex Shapiro. We don't have a sponsor, but we could. Alex, you did some research on Joe Brady. This is a hot name this week after what we saw in the Bills-Lions game. What have you learned about the Bills offensive coordinator whose name is circulating as potential coordinator, whiz kid, offensive-minded, the next big name? And it's really interesting because Clay actually has some personal experiences to chime in on. So, Alex, let's get your thoughts first, and then we'll get to Clay.
Okay, this week we are talking about Joe Brady, offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills. Now let's start where he burst onto the coaching scene in 2019. That was at LSU, where he was the wide receivers coach and passing game coordinator for the Tigers. That was the super stacked team with Joe Burrow, Justin Jefferson, and Jamar Chase. And those are the guys who beat Trevor Lawrence and T. Higgins in the national championship. Joe Burrow won the Heisman Trophy and set a new FBS record with 60 passing touchdowns this year. And Joe Brady won the Broyles Award that season, which recognizes the top assistant coach in college football. Now, he actually got his NFL start a couple years earlier. That was as an offensive assistant with the Saints, and that's where we're going to bring in our guy, Clay Harbor, because he worked with Clay Harbor over there, so we're going to get a lot more on that in a minute. But his first OC job was calling plays for the Panthers, and that came right after that LSU season. That was in 2020 as part of Matt Rule's new staff. Now, Joe Brady's offense, with a lot less talent than that LSU Tigers offense, did a lot poorly. They were 24th in scoring in 2020. He was fired partway through the 2021 season, and they were once again 24th in scoring. So obviously, the poor scoring led to him being fired, but Matt Rule at the time said another reason he was fired was he was not running the ball enough. So we're going to put a pin in that because we're fast forwarding now to the middle of 2023. Joe Brady had been working as the Bills quarterback coach when the team fired their offensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey, and Joe Brady finds himself as the offensive coordinator once again. And he really helped the Bills turn things around. And he did it by reestablishing the run game, which is something I know Bears fans are going to love to hear. So he wasn't running the ball enough with Carolina, so he starts running the ball more with James Cook. Before he took over in 2023, James Cook was averaging 12 yards per carry and 61.5 rushing yards per game, For the rest of that season, when Brady was the interim OC, Cook was then averaging 16.7 carries per game and 72.4 rushing yards per game. They made him the full-time offensive coordinator after that. And it's worth mentioning this year, the Bills have the number 2 scoring offense. That's really impressive because it's after they shipped out Stephon Diggs, right? A lot of people expected the Bills offense to take a step back without Stephon Diggs. They replaced him with Keon Coleman. Keon Coleman, as a rookie, has missed a lot of time. The Bills have not missed a beat. And Josh Allen is playing at an MVP level. But here's a big question, and this is a question that is going to come up with some of these guys, right? How much of this is Joe Brady, and how much of this is Josh Allen? How much of the LSU Tigers' success was Joe Brady? He obviously won that Broyles Award, which is great, but how much was just Joe Burrow and Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase all playing together? So he's had success with great offenses. But the Panthers situation is also a question he is going to have to answer for. Why did things not work out in Carolina? And so now, Clay, you worked with this guy in New Orleans. So you have some extremely unique insights and stories to share. So can you please share what you got on Joe Brady, the coach?
So, yeah, I first met Joe when I signed as a free agent in New Orleans in 2017, and he was the assistant tight ends coach. He helped, and our head tight end coach was Dan Campbell. So those two personalities, it was funny watching those two interact because Joe doesn't have the biggest personality. He's not to himself, but he's kind of a quieter, nice guy. He's very introspective, almost, I would say, but a really smart dude. And then you got Dan Campbell, who obviously we've heard all the quotes and we've seen all the bravado and everything that he's got going on and how confident and the personality that he has. And Joe is a guy that was quality control. He was the assistant tight end coach, but Dan would run a meeting and he'd ask Joe, do you have anything to add? And Joe would always have something for us. And he would know his route disciplines and everything. And he was a smart guy that knew exactly what the quarterback was looking for. And he would say, okay, here's what the quarterback's saying. And that was something that was like his part of the meeting. Joe, what's the quarterback looking for us on this play? So he's a guy that can coach multiple positions. He's a guy that's one of the hardest workers. Like he's going to be in there early. He's going to leave late. And I know you could say that about any coach, but the one thing that would worry me is I don't know if he's got the personality when you walk in a room to command the entire team, right? He's a smart guy. He knows his offense. Obviously, we're talking the NFL. When I was there, he was under Sean Payton, Dan Campbell. I mean, those are some big-time names, some coaches that are doing well. But obviously, Sean's personality, big personality, wasn't the nicest guy in the world. I'll say I didn't love Sean Payton, but you respected the heck out of him just because of who he was, what he did, and what he commanded of you. And Joe is more, obviously, when I knew him for that year, he's a quieter guy. He's not the biggest personality in the world, very smart, knows his stuff, buttoned up, but can his personality create an entire culture for a team? So that would be the question I would have. I love Joe, was a great guy. I'd be like, yo, Joe, come out and throw me 100 before or after practice. He's doing it. He was that would do anything and go above and beyond anything you needed from him or expected from him. But his personality is not this outgoing guy that would command a room, in my opinion, when you have a team like the Bears who really to establish a new culture of accountability. I'm not sure Joe Brady would be the guy to fix that. I think he's got what it takes to be a head coach, but I think you want him to kind of come in with more of an established culture, an established quarterback in a situation like that. And I don't think this Bear situation would be the best situation for him, just because I don't think that's him as a personality standpoint that can really come in and change a culture and like that.
You also have to wonder, this isn't Josh Allen. This isn't Joe Burrow, his last year of college. Like, you have to teach and develop a young quarterback how to be an NFL quarterback. And I think that's a huge part of this. Like, yeah, sure, he maybe has transformed this Bills offense. There's really no way for us to know that because you have the MVP, right, running it. So arguably the league MVP. So to me, what concerns me is he going to come in and tell Caleb Williams, like, everything you're doing is great, keep doing what you're doing, use your God-given talent? Or is he going to come in and say, hey, you got to be better at this, and we got to figure out a way that you're doing this better? Like, you need that sort of strong personality, because it almost feels like, guys, when the Bears drafted Caleb Williams, they treated him like he had, all the answers. Like he could do it, on his own. And I think there sort of needs to be someone coming in and saying, we are resetting, sort of how we are going to grow this offense as one. Like, it just feels so disjointed, and it's like Caleb and everyone else. And I just want there to be sort of this cohesion for this offense where you're developing and you're teaching them in unison, to steal a word from Thomas Brown, right? Like the unity thing. Like, it doesn't feel like this team is super connected on offense. The offensive line is doing their own thing. Caleb's doing his own thing. The receivers are doing their own thing. And it's like, is there going to be, it doesn't, to me, Clay, based off of how you were describing this, like Joe Brady doesn't sound like he has the personality necessarily to come in and just like rally the troops, like get everyone on the same page. And I think when you talk about this sort of leader of men, phrase, whatever the heck that
program
means,
leader, Ruthie, remember we changed the phrase last week. Program leader.
I'm sure these guys are working hard and they're brilliant, but like, you need someone to really come in and get this thing on, get people in check. Like,
you're right.
Like you need a culture overhaul.
Yeah. And I love how you said that, because you look at a guy like Ben Johnson, who was able to kind of turn around Jared Goff. Versus Jared Goff is a good quarterback, but he wasn't Jared Goff now before Ben Johnson. Obviously, Josh Allen has been Josh Allen for a while. And no, Alex, as you alluded to, great numbers. When he took Ken Dorsey was 5-5. And since then, 17-5 for Joe Brady. So you have seen that improvement, but he still is working with Josh Allen, a guy who is an MVP caliber quarterback. He's the same quarterback, and it's a little bit easier and different to put something into place for a guy that's playing at that level, is to kind of build someone up that isn't used to playing at that level, that doesn't play at that level, and getting more out of something you haven't technically seen before. So I think, like I said, I love Joe. I think he's a great teacher. I think he's going to be a good coach, but I don't think the Bears' job, being around this organization, born and raised in Chicago, being around the Bears organization, having to instill that culture, I don't think this would be the perfect fit for him. Because like what you said, I don't think he's really worked with a young quarterback that you really got to mold and really teach everything. You're starting from the basics here. Caleb Williams' footwork, I mean, I'm not a quarterback expert, but I know what footwork's supposed to look like, and he's got a lot of work to do there still. So, I mean, there's a lot of things you got to work with, and that's not something that you'd have to do with a Josh Allen caliber player.
Here's the other thing. Just like last week, we talked about Mike Vrabel, right? And the Bears have insight into what Mike Vrabel is like as a head coach in Kevin Byard. The Bears have, once again, insight into who is Joe Brady at the front of the room with DJ Moore in Carolina. DJ Moore was there for those offenses that struggled when, they had PJ Walker and I want to say Sam Darnold at quarterback back then. I should probably have that nailed down. Definitely PJ Walker. You should be asking DJ Moore, hey, how was this guy in front of the room? How was this guy in galvanizing that offense? Was he able to do things creatively with you to get you the ball? Because obviously DJ Moore had a ton of success no matter who was throwing him the football. Mm-hmm. So the Bears, once again, have the advantage of having a guy in the room who can share that insight and say, did you like it? Or maybe are we passing here? So that's very valuable for the Bears.
Yeah. Very interesting stuff. When you open that player door and getting player insight, you wonder if that's like a slippery slope, because then if they're like standing on the table for the coach and then you don't end up hiring him, and then is the player mad? That worries me a bit, but I hear you. I mean, there's definitely some experience. DJ Moore is going to be here. So it's, unless barring something crazy happening, right? So anyway, Great stuff, guys. Per usual, this is a longer episode for us, but we had a lot to get to. So we will be previewing this Lions matchup round 2 at a chilly Soldier Field that's going to be taking place this Sunday, the third to last game of the season. And we will have more for you on that on Friday. For Alex Shapiro, Clay Harmer, this is the Charter Podcast brought to you by St. Xavier University. We will see you on Friday.